Hello and welcome to the Psychic Stories podcast, encouraging conversations about mental health. Today I'm speaking to Bethany Robinson. Bethany is a teacher, mental health advocate, CrossFit athlete, weightlifter, and recruit on season 5 of the TV program SES Who Dares Wins. Bethany, good morning. How are you?
Hiya, I'm good, thank you.
Good. Live from Cornwall.
Yeah.
Snowing there?
Cornwall at the moment.
Say again?
Snowy Cornwall.
Very snowy. It's a little bit snowy here. It is freezing. And I hear you've just come back from a CrossFit workout.
Yes, literally, like in the last half an hour.
Exhausting.
Yeah.
Vomiting on the floor.
Yeah, well, not actual vomit. Like I was close.
Just bile.
6 rounds of really bad intervals, so I'm just like, yeah. And I've got tape on my fingers because I wore all the skin off the side of my fingers in the workout.
Honestly, how you do CrossFit is beyond me. So the goal of today is to have an open and honest conversation about your mental health journey, to get some insight into the tools and techniques that have helped you and are available and accessible to other people. By discussing your journey, we hope to share and normalize conversations about mental health, as often people are definitely not alone in these experiences. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, first things first, very easy. Would love to hear more about your mental health journey.
That is like my journey is massive. So it's going to be quite a long answer.
Yeah, please.
So basically, I honestly, for a long time, I didn't know I was struggling with mental health, because I think the problem with depression is a lot of people think it means sad, and I wasn't sad. I was like numb, because obviously, so I have bipolar disorder, and I found that out later on in like 2016. But I would have
quite recently.
Yeah, not too long ago. Although it feels like a lifetime for me.
Yeah.
But I'd have stints of depression, but for me it wasn't necessarily sadness. For the most part, it was just numbness and like just low mood and like the inability to do anything. I would just like feel like I couldn't get up off the sofa or out of bed. But I didn't feel desperately sad. And then I would have periods of like this really high mood where I just feel on top of the world, go out and party, like do all the things that I shouldn't be doing, drink loads, get myself into really risky situations, like all of the things, spend all my money, all of that.
Yeah. So basically no control whatsoever. Just living on impulse.
Yes. And then
it's hard.
That, obviously I blamed myself, because I thought these are decisions that I'm making. Like I thought, because obviously the perception of everybody when they're like doing all those risky behaviors is that it's their choice and they're doing that to themselves, so it's their fault. So I had all this self-blame. And then it wasn't until like probably a few years of this happening, this constant up down cycle, they started to worsen. And I think they started to worsen off the back of, I had to take some form of tranquilizer for a neck thing that I had. And that, for some strange reason, sent me into what they called rapid cycling. So I was going up and down, but the episodes were getting worse, and I was starting to get mixed episodes. So I'd end up with quite, at this point, really extreme depression, where I was feeling desperately sad and suicidal and all of those feelings, and then the mania at the same time. And I was going out and partying, and then all of a sudden my mental health would flip and I'd want to kill myself, and I didn't know where it was coming from.
That must be very scary.
Absolutely terrifying. So and I had like two proper suicidal episodes. One where I tried to throw myself in front of a train, which was the first time I really, I know it seems mad, but that's when I realized there was something wrong and that I needed to do something. But again, after that, I was so depressed that I didn't have the energy to do anything about it. I got restrained by the police and sent home with my mum and told off. And they also like told my mum off, like, we're not babysitters, you need to like keep your daughter inside or whatever. And they thought I was on drugs. I wasn't on drugs, I was manic. And then
and that particular, like you said, that attempt on the train, like that's a traumatic episode, like, and the
doors were shut and I couldn't get through it though, so it wasn't like I actually threw myself in front of a train. I was just having these feelings and experiences, and someone had called the police as they were worried about me. I was there, but I didn't do it.
But I mean, but even if you don't do it, like, it's still traumatic. And then, like you said, the next day, reflecting on it, not be able to get off the couch. I mean, no wonder. Like, that must be an extremely difficult time. And were you at this time, because now you're involved in a lot of exercise, weightlifting, CrossFit? Were you doing that then? So it was so there was a transition point where your life changed.
Yeah, so I was so overweight. I was about 18 stone probably at that point. Like, I loved sport when I was a kid, but I went to do an art degree, and I've always had this conflict between art and sport in my life, and art had taken over, and I just lost sport completely.
Yeah.
I think honestly that was the start of my mental health starting to decline, because I'd always needed it. And then so I was overweight.
So that balance was really needed for your head.
It was all completely off.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't that first suicidal episode that did it, it was the second one, where I ended up then under the care of a mental health team. And one of the first things that they told me was that I could, oh no, it wasn't the first thing. They tried to medicate me with loads of stuff first, obviously. But then after a while, when I was like, all these medications are not working, some of them are making me worse, some of them are making me better, but then it's temporary. And they were like, well, while we're waiting to find something that works for you, you could try and do some lifestyle changes and like see if you can like balance out your eating, get into a sport, sleep like 7 to 9 hours, no more, no less though, and all those little things. And I was like, great, like this is what I needed, something that I can do. Like I now feel empowered that I can have some effect on my mental health. Went away, did that. 3 months later, when I came back from my appointment was, because obviously 12-week waiting list or whatever.
Yeah, it's a long time, and that's half the issue, right?
Exactly, that's so hard. But thankfully I didn't go the other way. I came back 3 months later and I was remarkably better, and I barely had a single episode, and I'd lost 2 stone. Wow. And I'd started exercising, and I'd started like loving my body, like caring for myself and trying to look after myself like I would like a younger sister or a best friend or a child. And like feeding myself all of the things that I needed, making sure I went to bed on time, like literally giving myself a bedtime, because it was a massive trigger for my mental health. All of those things.
And not even when you said feeding, it's not always food, is it? It's what your body and mind needs. Like you said, a good bedtime, good quality sleep, less booze, good high quality food, exercise, and all these things. Like you said, it's amazing that team, you know, and I'm sure they say this to a lot of people, but what we're hearing across Sidekick is that actually there are so many kind of basics that you can get right first and those things are easy to do relatively and free. That's the other thing as well. Like, you know, eating quality food, but it does, you know, and doing exercise and sleeping well, drinking more water, but it does take some element of motivation. And I'd be interested to know so prior to that point, you said you were 18 stone, and that was as a result of sport coming out of your life and feeling it balanced. But then as soon as someone said to you, this is what to do, you just switched round. And then 12 weeks later, you said you lost, you know, dropped 2 stone, you're exercising, you feel more healthy, and mental health feels better. Like, did you need that someone to say that? Or, you know, and I think the question is, why couldn't you have done that before? And I don't mean to say that in a harsh way, because I've certainly had my experience of ballooning up and down, and it's hard to do it. So what was about that moment that said, I'm going to do this now?
It's a lot of things collided in one single month, I think. I had I've also struggled with eating disorders, so I've had body dysmorphia since I was a teenager, and bulimia I struggled with for quite a long time. And I knew that was something that it was getting worse and worse. I needed to sort that out. So obviously with the bipolar diagnosis also came the eating disorder diagnosis, and I knew that was something that I had to work on. I really took it upon myself. I had no other resort. Like, I was suicidal. Like, my life had ended in my head. So I was complete rock bottom, and I'm like, I have to own this. Like, this is I either get better or I die. Like, there's no other choices. So I educated myself on nutrition, and I looked up loads of YouTube videos, loads of people that had lost weight themselves, and loads of people that have got back to health from eating disorders. And I learned about calories, and I learned about macros, and I learned about fitness and how to fuel your body so that you can get better at all those things. And also my sister helped me start weightlifting, and that was something that I'd never tried. And they had a home gym, and she did some deadlifts and squats before. And her husband now is he was an S&C coach at the time, and he does a lot of weightlifting. They all do CrossFit together with me now. But yeah, they got me into the gym, and it was a couple of weeks before that they'd told me, you need to make some lifestyle changes. And I knew at that point I had to do that, but I didn't know how I was going to do that.
Mm.
So then that came at the right moment, and I started seeing these videos of like obese to beast. You can look him up, he's quite good.
Mm-hmm.
He's lost a huge amount of weight, and I saw his before photos as where I was, and I'm like, well, it's possible. And I figured out how he did it, and then all of these things just came together, and then that's what I did. So I didn't have all that information before. I didn't have a sport that I really enjoyed, and then that moment I did. And yeah, it was just a happy accident.
Yeah.
I started seeing this like positive, like upward spiral.
So actually in that respect, so before that, you knew a lot of these things, but you weren't quite sure how to kind of channel all of them.
It was a process of educating myself on
those
things, like, and I read a couple of books as well, and they started talking about these lifestyle changes, like books about bipolar. But I've always liked to educate myself. Like, I've got a load of qualifications. Obviously, I've got a PhD and a degree. I love reading books. And I just feel like knowledge is power, and knowledge has helped me do so many things in my life. And obviously my degree is in making stuff, and I learn everything that I can about a certain material, like the temperature it melts at, like how you can pour it, how you can cast it, all those things. So I just applied my love of knowledge and learning to what I had to do with my body to change my life at that time. So I didn't really know those things, but I learned those things in a very short space of time.
but it's amazing. And it sounds like, did you apply that level of, I suppose, when you had those manic episodes, do you apply that level of kind of, in some respects, energy and enthusiasm, and just dive into, and actually when you apply mania,
we had a bit of an upward swing of mania.
I was going to say, I mean, it's a very good thing when you apply mania to self-care, doesn't it? Because then you turn into like some, Greek goddess, you know what I mean? Like, completely pure in every way. And I suppose as well, it's everything's self-reinforcing, isn't it? So when you start to feel better, you kind of think, oh, hold on, I'm not going to go back to what I was doing. And it sounds like a lot of those kind of patterns and habits in your head probably were quite broken quite quickly. Or did they linger?
As well, this is what's so mad about it. It's because I'm so obsessed with this like cycle of self-improvement. I'm still fixing loads of other things that have been going wrong in my life for so long. Like even in the last couple of months, like I've made huge steps to sort of fix, like, as you say, broken patterns and things that, like, because I've got, obviously on SAS I talked about my history with abusive relationships, and that has had a huge impact on me, and that probably played quite a big part into why my mental health got so bad, because I felt worthless and like I was embarrassing and hard to be around and difficult and all this sort of stuff. And I hadn't realized until recently, since my new boyfriend and obviously,
who gives you a feeling of self-worth.
And he's really emotionally aware as well, and obviously works in a mental health school like me, so kind of really understands mental health and all the ins and outs, and has taught me that I'm not difficult and I'm actually really easy to be around, and all of these things that I believed about myself because of these horrible relationships are actually not true. So I've started to now recognize that. I've started to tackle those thoughts when they come into my head. I've started to notice all those intrusive thoughts and go, no, that's not true, because he doesn't think that, they don't think that. And I've recognized they're not my voice, they're somebody else's voice, and what I'm doing is I'm continuing to attack myself with a voice of somebody that's long gone. So I refuse to stop doing that to myself now, and like over the last couple of months I've seen more progress in that. So it's kind of an obsession. And it's feeding back into itself all the time, but it's making me so much happier.
And it's interesting. I think, I've heard this several times across some of the episodes that we have, is that people often talk about that kind of other person, or that past self, or that inner child, whatever it was. So those negative thoughts, like, and the voices, or the whatever thoughts are coming at you, you can start to say, oh, hold on, no, I choose not to listen to that. Like, fair enough, that's a voice, but there's 10 other voices in my head which are saying positive things. And do you know what? I'm choosing that actually those positive things are the things not only that I want to hear, but I actually going to believe, because that's what I'm experiencing in my day-to-day life. And I think it must have been very, very hard, especially when you're in an abusive relationship, to be able to even fight against that not only that negative self-talk, but also the actual negative talk that's coming at you from the external into your head.
I didn't fight against it, really. I just took it as fact for a long time. It was
which is
awful.
bullying. It's awful, disgusting bullying.
But I had no, and this is why I started talking about it more recently, because I had no knowledge of what an abusive relationship looks like. And honestly, from childhood, my models of relationships weren't that great, because I'd been surrounded by like kind of volatile models of relationships, so I assumed that that's what love was. And so when that came into my life, like stability looked boring to me, and that volatile stuff looked like love, so that's what I kept going for. And I felt like I didn't deserve the like calm, like supportive, like exactly what I have now. I felt like I didn't deserve it and I wasn't worthy of it, and I was wrong.
but I suppose like you said, like you didn't deserve, like you didn't think you deserved it, but you also didn't recognize, you thought it was boring. You thought that was the kind of, God, I don't want my life to be like that. You know, the kind of, you know, the 2.4 children and this and that. And, but actually,
oh my God, that's another thing. Like, so I didn't think I wanted kids, basically, because I didn't think I deserved that like loving, happy, like, I don't know, like there was something painful to me about that. And I just couldn't deal with it. And I'd resigned myself to never having kids, never getting married, never doing any of those things, never buying a house, which I'm now sitting in a house that I own with my partner.
Amazing.
Which has happened over the last year, but that's all because of these horrible abusive relationships and this weird like pattern of love that I've built up in my head, and I've had to progressively dismantle all of those. And that's honestly a knock-on effect of having this battle with mental health earlier on, like in 2016, and realizing that I can have an effect on my own life and my own thought patterns, and I can sort of learn and problem solve around all these things that I deal with.
And also, it's not that you have a choice to participate in that. Like, you are the only one who can actually change it. It's your life, isn't it? And it comes down to that question, you know, like you said, you know, especially when you said you're struggling with suicidal thoughts. It's like, do I want to live or die? Okay, I choose to live. Okay, how do I want to live? Do I want to live like I've been living, or in terms of like, you know, suffering abusive relationships? Or do I make a choice to say, okay, well, it's going to be very hard to disentangle myself with not only the thoughts, but the relationships themselves. Because, you know, I don't have experience of being in an abusive relationship, but it's, you know, from what I understand, it's horrendous. And disentangling yourself from that, especially if you stay living in the same area with the same friends, it's very difficult. So changing your life to that degree takes a lot of courage and a lot of motivation, which it sounds like you have applied in spades.
Yeah, that is what's difficult, as well as people around you are used to you being in a certain way, and you changing can be very hard for people. But I don't know, I'm putting myself first now. My happiness like means more than what other people want me to be. I find that a lot of other people are more comfortable when I'm smaller and more like quieter, but I'm not going to do that anymore, because that doesn't make me happy. Being that crushed person does not make me happy. So.
And frankly, any person who wants to see their friend as a smaller, quieter version isn't really a friend.
Exactly.
I'm sorry if people are listening who have friends like that, but no, like the point is you've got to stand up tall and, you know, look after yourself and stand up for yourself, and, you know, because that's an empowered human being, an individual, and that's the kind of people you kind of want kind of battling in the world in a good way.
And this is why it's so important to talk about all of this, because me back then, I would not have realized that is what I was supposed to feel. I thought, I don't know, I thought I was supposed to be this way that I was, and I was supposed to stay small and judge myself on all of the actions that I did and the things that I wore and any of the choices I made. Like, but no, like I can be whoever I want to be. And it's, you talk about the like when I was suicidal, there's a thing that I did. I like thought about, I pretended to myself that in that moment where I was suicidal, that I had killed myself, and then that was the point, and the rest of my life I got to choose what I did with it. And it was like, that part of your life is over. You've completely like deleted that person you were. Now you start again. And that's how I've looked at my life from then onwards. So
Okay, so in some sense, it's almost like a kind of a metaphorical suicide, where you're saying that you know, and perhaps, you know, without using the word suicide, you know, turning that into something that maybe people who aren't experiencing suicidal feelings will relate to, is that chapter is very firmly closed.
Yes,
and it's never being opened again.
Exactly.
That book is over, and I've burnt the bloody book.
Yeah. That's exactly what I did. And like anytime I looked at what had happened, I refused to be hard on myself for anything that happened in that chapter, because there was so many things that I was fighting against and I didn't understand what was going on. And so I forgave myself for everything that I did, because a lot of the stuff that I had done in that part of my life, I judged myself very heavily for doing, because mania can do a lot to a person. And yeah, I refuse to judge myself for that anymore. And I was like, no, you're a new person from now on. What you do now is what you can choose what you do. And that's how I am who I am today, because I've made those decisions.
And do you find, I think, in terms of practical, and actually, you know, in some respects, relating to your experience. So I've got a particularly unhealthy relationship with food, always have done.
Yeah.
Attacked it with the kind of, with some of the methods that you suggest, but realize that actually those thought patterns or those kind of pathways in my head are actually probably the hardest things to unpick that I can ever do. And actually, I've realized now that I can manage it better than unpick it. The unpick it is actually very, very difficult, I'm finding. So so in terms of that, where we said about that chapter of your life closing and the book being burnt, actually, are there still some very deep set things which linger, which you still have to cope with and manage?
Yes, yeah, like the food stuff, that's been something I've been working on for a very long time, and I still am. Like, so I didn't eat a lot of vegetables for a long period of my life. I grew up on a farm, so we ate huge quantities of vegetables, huge quantities of food,
Yeah.
but it was all very healthy. So then when I transitioned to living on my own and going to university, all I did was cook the same quantities, but in pasta.
Yeah.
I
Pasta
like,
and cheese.
yeah, pasta and
And
cheese.
do you know what? It tastes good. It tastes
Yeah,
good.
really good. That's why I put on all the weight. So
Yeah.
I start, and I hated vegetables, but I treated myself as I would a kid, and progressively introduce vegetables one by one into my diet. And
What
even
are your
if I like
favorites?
them, what my favorite vegetables?
Yeah, I want to know.
I don't think I have any. I put spinach in everything, but I just think
Okay.
really like mushrooms. I've always
Oh,
liked,
nice.
but yeah, I pretty much hated most vegetables, and I just started, like, now I have like 7 different vegetables in most meals.
Oh wow. So
Yeah,
it's
it's a
yeah.
lot.
But I think, like, in terms of, I certainly don't know, but I mean, my wife had gestational diabetes, and
Yeah,
when our first child was born, and we went to an NHS dietitian, and they brought out a plate, and they, for me, I was like, pasta takes up like that much of the plate, but they're like, no, it's a handful of pasta. Half of the plate should be the veggies.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. That's what I saw. Half the plate is
Yeah,
for me, pretty much. Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's not what you're taught, is it?
No, like we don't. I think we should be taught that. Obviously, I work in
Yeah.
a school, and I feel like that should be really deeply embedded. But I don't think it is. I think there's work to do there. But it's about, so what I do with pasta is a really good example, because I still eat a lot of pasta, but I take the serving size that's on the bag, I measure that out, and I put that in, and then I put all the sauces in, and I use a protein, so it's either like a tin of tuna per person, or a chicken breast per person, or something else. And then on top of that, if I want to make the meal bigger, which obviously I always do because I'm a very hungry person, I have to use veg. So I just pile it with
Just
veg.
pile on veg, yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I end up with these massive portions that most regular people I don't think could eat, because they're huge. I bring
But
like Tupperware to work, and people are like, "Oh my god, how much do you eat?" But I'm like, I know full well that what I'm eating here is
yeah,
less calories than like one of your sandwiches.
and actually, and it's better for you as well. It's all natural and
Getting all the nutrients in that I need, like, and I'm keeping myself full, and I'm not like spending all of those calories that I need throughout the day in one meal. And that was really important for me, because balance was really hard.
yeah.
I would not eat, and then I would binge, and that was hard. So I still to this day really struggle if I miss a meal, if I'm like out and about and I forget to have lunch, or I don't really forget, but like lunch is not accessible easily.
Yeah.
I always bring like emergency snacks with me, because if I miss lunch, then I'm fully at risk of a binge, and then like purging, all of that sort of stuff can come with it. So yeah, I still like maintain like a solid food routine, and I don't have to track calories. I can eat like intuitively, but at the moment I'm doing a cut, so it's a bit different. So I am tracking calories now. But learning about calories taught me about food, and it also taught me that when I am maintaining my weight, I also need to eat enough. Like it can't always be about the lowest calorie option. It's got to be like, this is the amount of calories I need in a day, so I must eat that much. Otherwise, I'll just try and starve myself, and that's not healthy.
It's not, and sometimes, but it goes against what I'm not sure it's what we're told, but what I kind of get a sense, I don't know if it's from advertising or whatever it is, but you know, the kind of default is if I finish a meal hungry, that's good.
Yeah, no, that's
but
isn't it? I like want to be stuffed full.
Like, you know, actually, like to be stuffed full or to be full of good things sits uncomfortably with a lot of people. Because they think I've eaten too much. Well, no, you haven't.
So like even down to my family, they think I eat too much. Like my mum sees the portions I eat and she's like, that can't be good for you. I'm like, Mum, have you seen what's in my food? Like loads of veg. This is exactly the amount of calories that I need for this meal. Like, of course it's good for me. But because they come from that generation of all of these weird fad diets where you only learn stuff from books and newspapers, magazines, I think everything was like super sensationalized. So like my nan is a big fan of like Atkins and like will never eat carbs, and mum has gone like really low fat, and they've all the eating disorders kind of behaviors are fully threaded in my family. So that's part of what kind of bred it into me, and I again had to dismantle all of that and understand what real nutrition is about.
And do you see, I'll be interested because you're within the kind of CrossFit community, but also kind of the weightlifting, the gym community as well, because you know we talk, you know, there's a lot of talk around, you know, eating disorders when it comes to females. Less so with males, although there is more now. We had Freddie Flintoff come out, you know, a year ago, which I couldn't believe when I heard, saying he struggled with an eating disorder. I mean, what an amazing thing to come out and say. Do you find within that community that there are a lot of men blokes, you know, who actually you think actually have very similar patterns of behaviors and frankly have undiagnosed eating disorders?
Yeah, there definitely are some, but I think it is slightly less common in men because they are more brought up to like eat to fuel yourself, and they're always like sporty. Like I feel like men in schools, like they're always taught to be sporty and or like celebrated when you like eat enough, when you eat enough.
Or that's like, interesting. Yeah,
got a great appetite, but if a girl's got a great appetite, which was me, that's a bad thing. So I think
it's a good point.
I think men generally don't, but I think in sports there can be that, especially when they're trying to do a cut for a weightlifting competition. Like there's a lot of very unhealthy ways to lose weight, and then there's definitely a whole lot of body dysmorphia in stuff like bodybuilding. I know that's
well, it has to be, right? It's almost for me that's the natural state for bodybuilding, like because very, very fine tuned, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And like I think personally I've experienced like my body dysmorphia being amplified by the fact that I went from being so big to being so small very quickly. And I think that must have an effect on your body when you're like cutting down from a show so fast. I don't really know that much about it though, but I know there's definitely those issues. And then in CrossFit, maybe if there are eating disorders, it's more towards the kind of orthorexia. So there's definitely a lot of food rules that go on, and especially in like early CrossFit there was a lot of like paleo and like the zone diet and not eating like processed carbs. But I think now with like Matt Fraser being like the top guy and has been for so long, and you can like look up exactly what he eats because his wife posts all of his meals, and he's eating like cinnamon swirls and like pies, and he doesn't skimp on carbs. So I think that is a good thing. There's like that encourages people to eat enough, and he was like smashing tubs of Ben and Jerry's in his first year when he won it. So and
if anyone hasn't watched CrossFit, and you know, I am not a CrossFitter, but my wife and I love the CrossFit Games documentaries. Watch Matt Fraser. One, he's got a hell of a personality, but secondly, the stuff that guy can do, and also Tia Toomey,
she's amazing.
The stuff that these the part of your CrossFit community that these people do, it is staggering. Like,
one Cara Saunders, like she's quite
Okay.
small, but she lifts such heavy weights, like it's insane, and her legs are so big. And I think part of like seeing like CrossFit females that are more muscular, I think that's helped women be more empowered to want to be strong and like, I want to have legs like Cara, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's certainly, I've certainly noticed over the last, I suppose, like 20 years, a trend which is away from very thin to actually to very athletic and very muscular as well. Lots of abs, lots of legs, you know, lots of arms and upper body. And actually that kind of balancing out seems to be, you know, like you said, there's a view and an emphasis and perception of we are strong. We are strong people, which is amazing.
Yeah, I had like a huge thing about my legs when I was younger. Like I hated them. I remember really vividly, I used to try and not like let my legs sit down on a chair because they'd like squish outwards. I remember like trying so hard not to do that because I didn't want them to look fat. And then like when I got into weightlifting, they were like, big legs is cool. And
strong base.
Yeah. And I'm like super proud of my huge quads, but I never would have thought that. And I've got massive calves as well. I've always had massive calves. And like people are like envious of having big calves. I wanted to cut them off when I was a kid. I was like, can you get like calf removal? And nobody explained to me you actually need calves to like walk and do stuff. And I'm like good at jumping. Like I couldn't Olympic weightlift without calves. It's mad to know that that's kind of admired now, and I wish I'd had that. I wish I'd seen women from CrossFit when I was a teenager. I think that might tackle the body dysmorphia a bit better.
And do you find that as a teacher now and working, are you in primary or secondary?
It's both. I work in a mental health school, so it's primary and secondary.
And secondary, so the whole age range up until like
different ages in the same group, and
And do you find, so some of the you know, a lot of the wisdom that you're talking about now that you've learned only in the last few years, are you starting to, you know, support the young, you know, those younger kids and younger generation, almost as if like how you would want to have been supported back then, to kind of love themselves and celebrate themselves and support themselves?
Yeah, I think I'm in a really good position as an art teacher where I definitely say to my students all the time, like, in this room, you can be who you are. You don't need to be ashamed of who you are. And like in the last couple of weeks, I had a scenario with that where a kid was like really into something that he was quite ashamed of being into. And I'm like, no, like you do whatever you want to do. If you're into that, that's fine. Like within this room, make art about whatever you want to. But I think outside of art, it's hard to have an impact because I can't say anything about the like fitness side of things or like the food because I'm an art teacher, and I don't think I would like to be listened to a little bit more maybe about when I say like kids need to learn about healthy eating, because I really believe that. And I also believe that sport should be super inclusive, and we should be helping kids find something that they enjoy, not just celebrating the kids that are like good at football or whatever. It should be, I feel like fitness and nutrition should all be about health in schools, but I feel like I can't have an impact on that because I'm an art teacher. So
but the thing is, but it's amazing. But the fact that you even bring that up suggests that in the schools that, not necessarily that you're working at, but schools in general, that isn't a focus. And I mean, frankly, they've been saying this for like, you know what you've been saying, you know, what you said about, you know, making sport more inclusive, having healthy eating, having, understanding, you know, basic emotional skills, empathy, etc. Like this is stuff that, you know, we've been talking about for 10 years, you know, or more. And I know that a lot of schools are starting to do that, but the fact that you're even saying it, suggests that actually, you know, there's a lot of work to be done. It's all on the side still.
Yeah. That is true. I think that's the real key into like tackling all of the issues with eating disorders and mental health in general, actually, because I think a lot of people find better mental health through fitness. And I think if we can help those kids that try and get a sick note for PE every week to find something that they enjoy doing, that could really tackle like the mental health crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, there is a crisis. You don't need the pandemic. You didn't need the pandemic for there to be a crisis. The crisis was here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the pandemic has exacerbated the crisis, but when the pandemic starts to ease, there's still going to be a crisis. And the fact is given all of our kids, well, okay, the majority will go through mainstream education or alternate provision or mental health support services. That is a perfect funnel for these very, like you said, very basic life skills, for that knowledge to be imparted so that people can start to take control of their own lives, right?
Definitely. I think this is another reason why it's so important. And I'm always thinking of like the young, like men and women seeing my post, the teenagers seeing my post, because I think social media can be so powerful, but it can also be so negative.
Yeah.
A lot of the mental health of like the younger the kids can be caused by social media and self-comparison and the really awful stuff that we've seen on TikTok lately, like the A4 challenge, where like girls are trying to be thinner than an A4 piece of paper. Like that stuff is insane. And I think the way we tackle that is we have to also tackle it with social media, because I think adults, I think there's a issue at the moment with maybe adults and teachers and just people saying, I don't understand social media, so I'm just going to let them do whatever they want to do on that platform. And like, no, like we need to be in there. We need to see what they're looking at and tackle it head on, because if we don't do that, their mental health is going to get worse and worse. And I feel like there's too much fear around what they're doing on social media, and there's all of these like unregulated platforms now, like Discord, where you can post anything and share anything, and like TikTok can be so toxic. And then there needs to be more transparency. Like the parents need to be able to know what these kids are doing.
And I think encouraging those kind of conversations with kids, with your kids, with whoever, with the younger generation is important, because you actually start to understand how they feel, and perhaps we can be the voices where you say, well, actually, you don't, what you're feeling isn't, yes, it's valid, but it doesn't, you don't need, you have a choice, you have a choice not to look at this, you have a choice, or even to show them
like create your own feed sort of thing, like
exactly
on your feed that makes you feel more positive. Like have pictures, like we didn't have a choice when we were growing up about magazines with like all these skinny people. Like fill your feed with bodies that look like your body so that you feel better, and all the fashion stuff that you see is stuff that will fit your body. Like I found that's helped me so much. But like teaching that, I think that's helpful.
So a question on that. So when you do that, I assume that, especially if you're a public figure, public profiles, that there are people out there known as trolls, who can come and be, frankly, abusive, bullies.
Much of that.
So, I mean, first of all, I'm so sorry, because it's horrendous. But how do you deal with that? Because I know perhaps some, people listening, they may need to deal with it themselves. How do you deal with it? Because that's horrendous.
It's really hard, and it'd be silly of me to say that it doesn't affect me, because it does. On my bad days, if I see a comment that's like, you're fat, you're disgusting, or like something like that, I do massively internalize that, but I'm really trying hard not to. But I have recognized recently, and the trolling escalated dramatically when the pandemic hit, and that made me realize that was angry people and upset people that are struggling in themselves, trying to vent and trying to attack someone else to make them feel better. So that's what I try and recognize with every comment that I get. I'm like, that is a sad person, that is someone that's struggling, and they want to attack me because I probably represent something that makes them feel a little bit insecure about something with them. So that's where it's coming from. And
is it like so would you engage with them to try to try and almost like to kind of garner some empathy, where they're like, oh, actually, I was going to say,
my engaging with them is more like publicly posting it so my followers can go and have a go back.
Right, so it is warfare.
But I've realized that that's not particularly healthy for me anyway. It has helped me a little bit, because I felt like what they're saying is not true, and the people that have a go at them, they like me for who I am, and they don't believe what they're saying about me. That helped me in that way. But when I realize that person that's commenting is probably somebody that is struggling, I'm like, maybe that is kind of fueling them too. It's kind of, I think that's what they're seeking. They're seeking arguments and something that, I don't know, like fighting. They're fighting with people,
but like you said, it's motivated by something insecure within themselves. And do you find that, because I'm interested, like if you were to advise some of your some of your kids, or you're saying, I've got this feed and I want to post this or whatever, like, how's best to engage? Is it best to ignore? Is it best to, like you said, like what, talk about it, talk about how you're feeling with it, and like you say, acknowledge that person who's actually saying that horrible thing actually is probably very sad with themselves.
Yeah, so I'm still figuring out, to be honest, but my current strategy is to delete any negativity.
Yeah, yeah.
Anywhere. And I've also,
So take control of it.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm like, my attitude now, and I learned this off somebody else actually. She's called Chloe, and she's amazing. She's a fashion blogger, but I did a podcast with her actually recently, and she was saying that she was like, it's my platform, and I get to choose who gets to view it. And she actually, her platform is for females that want to dress up in whatever they want to dress, and she is like a mid-sized girl, and she gets a lot of hate from men that are like, that's not attractive, I don't find you attractive. And she's like, my platform's for women.
Yeah.
So what she does, and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, but she doesn't allow men to follow her.
Yeah,
She'll like, if she sees a man following her, she's like, no, like she'll like block him or make him unfollow her or whatever.
But it's her choice, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
her feet, and she's like, I know who my platform's for, and I don't want them on my platform either because they're like eyeing me up or because they're going to say something horrible. So
Yeah.
I'm reserving my platform for women, and that's my choice. And I was like, shit, like that's, maybe I need to do that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
not to that extent, because my platform is for anybody really. But if there's people being negative, I have every right to be like, my platform's not for you. If you're
Yeah.
going to be like that, I get to remove you because this is my platform.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's now what I do with my YouTube, and I do it with my Instagram, and I turned off all of my comments for everybody that wasn't following me.
Yes, yeah.
Which I found really helpful. And I've also blocked loads of keywords like fat and disgusting. I've blocked the vomit emoji, like everything.
and it's awesome to know as well that, you know, the social media platforms allow you to do that as well. But it's, I mean, frankly, I didn't know. Say again.
Someone from Instagram messaged me because they saw that I was getting all this hate, and they were like, do you know you can do this? And they talked me through it, and I'm so grateful I did that. But yeah.
But I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I certainly didn't know that. And the fact is that anyone listening, you know, you can do that. You can take control. And it seems like that you know, the running theme of our chat today is about taking control and actually, but then in order to take control, you need to have that confidence or a burst of confidence, even if it's for 2 days, to make those changes.
I love the whole, I don't know where I got that from. I think it was, there's a TED talk that is like, you have to like fake confidence or fake bravery for 10 seconds. And I took that into my life and like ran with it. And it's how I got into a CrossFit gym. It's how I've done a lot of things, but it's just like,
it's taking that first step, isn't it?
Yeah. And then you kind of like roll with it after that. So I used to do like a fair amount of public speaking, and I was terrified. I don't know why I signed up for it, but I knew it was something I wanted to do, and obviously it's something I do more now. But I was always shaking and so nervous. And I'm like, just be brave for 10 seconds, just walk through that door and say the first couple of words, and then after that I was fine. And that's happened in job interviews, it's happened with YouTube videos, it's happened with everything. So,
and it's funny, like, whenever you start to do either public speaking or a job interview or a test or whatever, especially involving people, as you approach that door, metaphorically speaking, if it's over Zoom, whatever it is, the negative self-talk starts going, I'm not good enough, I'm, you know, blah, 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 blah. Actually, you take that step through. Actually, what you're doing is almost taking a step over that self-talk, and you're getting out on that stage and realizing that people here are not here to you know, everyone in the orders isn't a troll. They're here. They're here to, they want to listen to you.
I am really like most of the time, like they probably don't even care. Like,
but they're here because they're interested in something. They're not here to judge. You know, my mum always said that. You know, I was in a very, very amateur band, and I got so nervous before going out on stage, and I was a drummer, so I was at the back anyway. And she said to me, she goes, everyone here is all your friends and family. We don't want you to fail. I was like, oh, fair point. But to me, it was judgment. Every wrong stick movement, I would think that, I was like thinking the whole room hates me. They're all about to leave, and like, but it's not the case. And there's so much going on in there, which you do need to start to really kind of process. And like you said, that journey of kind of self, you know, that transformation, kind of self-discovery is really important.
Yeah, it is. Like I have a bit of cluster when I'm anxious, and I started to kid myself into the fact that it's gone, and it hasn't gone actually. Like I thought it'd gone, because what I do is I sort of bulldoze it when it happens. I'll go, and then I just keep going, and
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really notices, but I've noticed that it's not gone, because when I go back to edit my videos, I still have a stutter, and then I edit out the stutter, and I'm like, oh my god, like this whole time it's still been there. I've just stopped noticing it.
I think the reason I'm laughing is because I have something similar, and it does come, and the bulldozing. I love the bulldozing because for me it amplifies it. So if I'm starting on a B, and let's say I'm using the word bulldozer, I kind of go bulldozer, and it's kind of like it's kind of like, I've literally burst through that door. I need to learn how you maybe calmly step through that door. And my face scrunches up. I'm like,
No, I amp up the energy after I've said it. I just use it as like, oh, I be this energetic. It really works in teaching because it really grabs their attention. But
yeah, I bet. One thing I wanted to ask was about so it sounds like where you've come from is from a life of like you said, imbalance and negativity, external, internal, and you've come to a place where you've got a much better balance. It seems like you've got a lot more things that nourish your mind and soul in your life. When things do, because I assume it's not all plain sailing and you do have bad days, like what tools and tips and techniques help you along your way?
Oh my god, so much. So at the moment I am actually getting counselling because I've got PTSD, which is something that I'm also really struggling with. I feel like I've got so many labels, but labels, I hate people that hate labels. It's diagnosis help you figure out what's going on so you can tackle it. That's what I think. But anyway, I'm getting counselling for that, and that is something that's really helping me investigate my own thought patterns. I journal a lot, and I've realised that through that, like voicing what I'm feeling kind of helps me validate my own feelings and understand why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling and also tackle it. But I was so uncomfortable with my own feelings to begin with. Before, in fact, the pandemic has changed me because I was one of those people that kept myself busy all the time because I was so scared that if I stopped, I would just, this flood of feelings would come over me. And I had to stop, and that did happen. And then that was the start of this journey. The PTSD got worse and worse, and I started seeking all of this help, and the counselling has helped me through that. And then I've also started trying to seek really calming activities, so things that make me feel good, like I drink herbal tea, I stretch, I try and make my environment really nice and warming and cozy,
colourful as well, we were talking about earlier as well.
So obviously I've moved house and I'm looking, ignore the blue behind me, that is going to change, but
ignore the red behind me.
It used to be the red that you have there, and now the bedroom is a calm green, as I call it. And I'm trying to just make my environment really calming and not judging whatever that is. So one really interesting thing is I have always hated kids' films, and I think this is part of this weird trauma that I have around the idea of children or having children or just kids in general, because there's something there that was painful for me. And now I realize that I love kids, and I actually love kids' movies. And I think it was because my idea of that love and cozy feeling was because I felt like I didn't have that. So I feel like now I can watch all of that mushy stuff because I actually enjoy it. And I watched Madagascar the other night, and it's just
great film.
I know, it's so good, but there's all of these kids films that I've missed out on because they felt icky and gross and uncomfortable for me, and now I find them really warming and warm and fuzzy. And that's a calming activity I brought in my life, and I'm now not judging whether I want to watch a kids film.
But actually, like you said, that not only is a calming activity, but also it's a validation of how far you've come. You said so previously you've watched these films, you're like, if the film's about love or family, you're like, oh no, whereas now the fact that you're watching it, one, it brings you joy, excitement, positive feelings, but at the same time, the fact that you watch it suggests that you are in a warm and fuzzy place, which is amazing.
I'm healing. It's a sign that I'm healing and I'm getting to where I should be. It's mad. It's been such a huge journey, and weirdly the pandemic has been a huge part of that, but I'm kind of thankful that I had that time. I had to let all those feelings flood in, because now I can deal with my own feelings.
Yeah,
Journaling
but
is honestly one of the most helpful things. I do it all the time.
yeah, and is any particular type of journaling? Because we on our app, which we'll talk a little bit about at the end. There's choices of gratitude journaling, just talking about your day. We've got a journaling program. Is there anything particular that works for you in terms of that journaling?
Literally, I just start with the words I feel like, and then dump everything, because I feel like sometimes I struggle to work out what's going on unless I write it or say it. So yeah, at the moment that's what it is. I have so many different kinds of journals. I do have like a journal that's supposed to be more positive, but this is something I'm gonna tackle because I know it's an issue, but I have a problem with gratitude journaling. And I think it's one of those things that feels icky for me, but also I think it's the issue with like toxic positivity. And I feel like if I go into that, I might try and shame myself into being positive about stuff when I feel negative. And I don't want to do that. I want to validate my feelings. So I don't want to go, oh, you have all these positive things in your life, so you've got no reason to be sad. Like, stop being sad because you should be grateful. That's how I feel that I would do it. So at the moment, that's not something I can do. But it's something I need to tackle because it can be helpful.
It can be, but also at the same time, it's the acknowledgement that there are a lot of kind of tools and techniques for mental health that can help people, but not all of them work for everyone. Like you said, gratitude journaling is popular for some people, but for you, it doesn't work. That's cool. That doesn't matter. Some people like meditation. Some people find it boring.
I tried that recently.
Yeah. Do you like it?
Yes. Some of it.
Yeah.
Some of it was like uncomfortable, and I had some times where it was really bad, and I had like one night where I just had this wave of feelings overtake me, and I left feeling like really negative. But the majority of the time it's really calmed me down, and I found like the kind of body scan one and the like one where you just focus on your breathing but don't try and control your breathing, and I mainly do it before I go to sleep. That's really helpful. I've also discovered, have you heard of ASMR?
Hold on. Is that the sensory?
Yeah.
Where you look at it's visual and audio, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's mostly audio. So it's like some people, I don't really understand it very well, but people that have it, you feel like a tingle, like a
yes
down your neck when they play certain sounds. I have that anyway. I didn't really know what it was, so I googled it. I was like, what is ASMR? It sounds really weird. What's the video on it? And they were like, we're gonna find out if you have ASMR. So anyway, they played this stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, this is really calming.
I am tingling everywhere.
Yeah, my neck's tingling. I feel really sleepy. And then I just found like, no, I was just looking for something that would help me sleep, because I really like a good wind down routine, because sleep is something that's really important to me for my mental health. And one of them popped up. It was like ASMR wind down sleep music, and I'm like, play.
The dream.
Oh my god, literally, I was like, I'll just listen to it while I'm like journaling. And my boyfriend came upstairs, and I'd fallen asleep with my pen and my journal in my hand.
Yeah, I am feeling.
Yeah, literally. So now I don't bother with the journaling. I just put that on and I fall asleep.
Yeah, but it is amazing how many things are out there. And like you said, ASMR is something that I came across. And actually, I typed it into YouTube, and my God, there's a lot of ASMR videos.
Like really weird stuff too.
A lot of really weird stuff. But look, if it works, then who am I to judge, right? Like, the whole point is what I want and what you want is people to find the tools that work for you, to find the balance in their life, that have helped you, to find the good relationships in their life that have helped you, to find that positivity and that self-love and self-worth, which has helped you. That's amazing. And like, your journey, like you said, it only started, you said, in 2016. Like, that's like 4.5 years, like almost coming up to 5 years. That's amazing progress. And it's amazing to talk to you. Like, you are so positive, and I can't even imagine you how you said you were back then.
Honestly, I'm so much of a different person. People accuse me of not being the same person. They're like, you're using pictures of somebody else. I'm like, no, that is me.
Yeah. And it's not even what I look like. It's in here. I'm a different person.
I've transformed in every single way. I don't think many people would recognize me as they knew me. It's mad.
Yeah. Well, honestly, Bethany, thank you so much for an awesome chat, and also so much positivity in that as well, because we did cover some quite dark moments in your life as well. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on, actually. It's cool.
Yeah, good. Well, thanks so much. And thank you to everyone listening. Yeah, you can subscribe to us on most major podcast platforms, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Just search for Psychic Community or Psychic Stories and we'll pop up. And please do give us a rating if you like the show. And as we've mentioned, do check out our free Psychic app for iPhone and iPad. It's a collection of interactive exercises, tools and tips to help you boost your mental well-being, and includes a lot of journaling, like we've spoken about, some meditation. Basically, find what works for you, take control, and do it more often. I think, Beth, that's kind of maybe how we sum up, in some respects, sum up your journey.
Yeah, definitely.
So the app enables you to build your own personalized wellbeing toolkit to help you deal with life's ups and downs. Just go to our website, www.sidekick.org.uk, and click the download now button in the header to take you to the App Store. Beth, thank you so much again.
No worries at all.